We all have at least a movie that we liked, but others did not. While this makes the average person feel like an outsider, I've become used to having unpopular opinions throughout my life. While there have been several movies that I've liked a lot and felt that they are misunderstood movies, the one movie that I felt the strongest love for, and is the most misunderstood movie of all time, is the 2004 movie Van Helsing. Many years ago, I made a video about why I think the movie is criminally underrated, but I spent more time explaining the story of the movie than why I love it. So in this video, I'm not going to recap the story, and instead, analyze the movie itself, and I'm going to explain the things I love and appreciate about it. After writing and directing the highly successful remake of The Mummy and a sequel, The Mummy Returns, Stephen Sommers decided to make a Monster Mash movie in the same vein as the Monster Mash movies from the 1940s. As much as I enjoy these movies, I have to admit that the stories were not the best. The writers often struggled to come up with reasons why the monsters were there, no matter how convoluted the situations were. Even the best of these at the time, which was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, had story problems. It is never explained why Dracula wants to harness the power of the Frankenstein monster, nor the logic why a European-style castle in the state of Florida is not a hot tourist destination decades before Disney would put their castle there. When Stephen Sommers wrote the script, he gave reasons why the monsters were there. That way, the story would not work if he removed any of the monsters. Without Dracula, there would be no conflict. Without the Frankenstein monster, there would be no MacGuffin. And without the Wolfman character, there would be no way to defeat Dracula. But more on that later. I also like the question, if Dracula is with 3 attractive women for many years, why doesn't he have any children? And this question blossomed into Dracula seeking out someone who could bring life to his children, thus making the Frankenstein monster an importance to the story. The writer and director even sat down and rewatched some of the Universal monster movies with cinematographer Alan Davrew. Alan Davrew was not your average cinematographer. He was a highly celebrated man, and the way he was able to visually replicate some of the shots of the old movies is something that I highly appreciate. The recreation of the burning windmill from Frankenstein was obvious, but even outside of the references, the cinematography is great. My favorite are when the shots rhyme. When Dracula sees the burning remains of the windmill, it mirrors the final scene when Van Helsing believes that he lost Princess Anna. But similar to how the Frankenstein monster survived the fire, it is revealed that Princess Anna's soul has lived on. I think that Stephen Sommers said it best.
The thing about these monsters is that they're really just people with really bad problems.
This idea shows how he had a far better understanding of these movies and the characters that were in them compared to Tom Cruise and the people behind the Dark Universe. A character that benefited the most was the Frankenstein monster. That character was perfectly played by Boris Karloff in the first 2 movies he was in, but even he knew that the character stopped being interesting by the 3rd movie. Especially by the 1940s, the monster would become less and less interesting. He would be a plot device that would typically only do something until the climax of the movie. However, this version of the character is an upgrade. He is not a mindless drone. He has his own agency, he gets involved with the story for a good chunk of it, and he is a character that harkens back to Bride of Frankenstein. Both want to exist and to be accepted.
What do you want?
To exist.
But he has to deal with others who want him dead for only existing, but his good actions win him over with others.
Thank you.
While he has to go into isolation to keep himself safe, the way his character was written is superior to how he was written in the 1940s. Another monster who also benefited by Stephen Sommers' reimagining was Dracula. It seemed that in some of Dracula's appearances, he was defeated too easily. However, this version of Dracula is virtually invincible.
You can't kill me, Victor. I'm already dead.
Sure, he does have things that can hurt him, but he cannot die the conventional way that other vampires do in the movie. The fact that this Dracula is virtually unstoppable makes him a legit threat, as well as making him a monstrous beast from hell. I will always love the Bat on Strings, but this perfectly showcases how powerful this Dracula is. A common criticism is how Richard Roxburgh portrays the character. Honestly, it's an interesting take, and him being erratic and awkward shows how he is nearly dead to emotions as if trying to emote.
I feel no love, nor fear, nor joy, nor sorrow. I am hollow.
His erratic behavior could also be seen as a reflection of how bizarre and creepy the elites like him are, especially with his Rothschild-esque masquerade ball he hosts with his fellow vampires. This also relates to Stephen Sommers' version of the Wolfman. While not Larry Talbot, the werewolves in this movie go about it as a metaphor for addiction.
The werewolf is more like a drug addict or an alcoholic where, during the day he's just fine. He could be your brother, your uncle, your dad. He's really a good guy. but at night his demons come out.
The fact that an elitist like Dracula controlling someone who has no willpower of his own reflects in the real world. The elites control the masses with vices, such as alcohol, drugs, fast food, gambling, pornography, smoking, and so on. However, when it's revealed that a werewolf can kill Dracula, it adds up why he has a cure for it.
The painting, that's what it meant.
But Dracula has been using werewolves to do his bidding for centuries.
Yes, but if one ever had the will to turn on him, he'd need a cure to remove the curse and make him human before it bit him.
So, the fact that someone like Van Helsing having the willpower to not be controlled by the metaphorical vices and stands up to Dracula, it makes an elitist like Dracula afraid. Because Van Helsing is strong-willed because of his virtuous nature, he is able to kill the metaphorical elitist. But before I go any further, I have a special guest star who has something special to say.
Hello there, my name is Will Kemp and I played Vulcan Valerius in Van Helsing. One of my favourite memories of filming was in conjunction with realising how large a production it was. I remember coming to set with Kate Beckinsale, having called to set and seeing Steve Summers, the director there, and we were talking through the scene. It was the first time that Vulcan changes into the werewolf, and we'd already worked out and rehearsed the scene in terms of crawling up the wall back when basically everything was done practically, and then the VFX effects were done on top of my performance. So we'd done all that bit and we were working it through, and I said to Steve, I just said it would be wonderful if, I don't know, I feel that this sort of wolf is coming out of him and he's ripping off this skin and it's really like aggressive. It'd be great to show this sort of the animal's strength coming through, and it'd be great if I could grab something and throw something. And Steve, being, you know, the genius and passionate director that he is, goes, yeah, okay. So he sent us all back to the trailers, and we were back in there for quite a while. I was thinking, you know, it was my first, or one of my first big jobs. And I was thinking, you know, maybe I overstepped the mark a bit, suggesting such a thing. But when I came back to set, they rigged up the long table that I ended up just grabbing and throwing against the wall. It was the most sort of joyful and fulfilling moment, realization of, gosh, this is a huge production. And I sort of felt as if I'd suggested anything, they probably would have made it happen. So that's where that comes from. That grabbing of that table and throwing it was a collaborative idea, and with Steve's willingness and the production's willingness to make it happen, to help tell the story of the transformation. So anyway, happy 20th anniversary to Van Helsing.
And that movie is covered in my book, 100 Years of Universal Monster Movies. Order your copy today, available in print and digital. Now back to the video. A very common complaint that many people at the time had with the movie were the amount of visual effects that it had, so much so that they even compared it to a video game. That is easily an exaggeration. Sure, the movie did use hundreds of visual effect shots, but it also relied on a lot of tricks, such as people in costume and makeup, using miniatures, and even filming both on location and inside detailed sound stages. Many shots of Castle Dracula were highly detailed miniature that looks great, and the windmill burning down was a combination of separate miniatures. Some shots were also emerging as several techniques, and the best movies use every trick in the book. Even the visual effects are mostly impressive. Sure, there are a few shots where the werewolves did not age the best, but for the most part, the effects still hold up very well. I know that there are people out there who are anti-CGI and think that animatronics and makeup are better. Well, when you have characters that are supposed to drastically change their anatomy in a few seconds on screen, you have to use computers to do that. Even a multi-award winning special makeup artist like Rick Baker likes to have computer effects as a helpful tool.
You know, I like CG to a degree. I mean, I like the fact that it's another technique that we can use to do things that we can't do in the real world with rubber.
It is hypocritical that the same critics who thought that the movie looked like a video game were the same stooges who gushed over Avatar, despite the fact that most of that movie looked like a video game by comparison. Even though The Last Voyage of the Demeanor had an actor as Dracula for real on set and special makeup, the movie used at least 1,000 visual effect shots, a lot more than what Van Helsing used. Another technical aspect that I highly appreciate about the movie is the soundtrack. While Alan Silvestri has done some incredible work of his own, this is my favorite movie soundtrack soundtrack of all time. It is so bold and catchy, and compared to other movie soundtracks much after that feel more like background noise, this soundtrack captures your attention. I love Dracula's theme of being foreboding, but the choir showcasing how much of an evil threat he is. I also love Van Helsing's theme of being a monster hunter on a holy crusade to rid evil from the land. The theme of Princess Anna is far more subtle, but nicely and tender in contrast. It shows that her character is feminine, but is determined to honor her family and to kill Dracula. But hints of this theme are placed in beautifully in my favorite track, Reunited. The scene is so beautiful and perfect, it makes me cry. Some of my favorite movie moments come from scenes like this. Moments where characters do not talk, but let their facial expressions and the soundtrack speak for themselves. It is a powerful and a universal language in a way. But to explain why I love the ending, I'm gonna now talk about Van Helsing himself. Although it could be argued that Hugh Jackman playing a character who suffers from amnesia was typecasting, but I think that he was perfect as the character. He is convincing as a hardened monster hunter, but someone who can be suave with the ladies when needed. He does have his moments of frustration, but mainly because he is trying to find out about his past. But the internal conflict for Van Helsing is being mislabeled as a murderer.
Van Helsing! You murderer!
Even though he does kill monsters, who he truly is being debated by others.
Some say you're a murderer, Mr. Van Helsing. Others say you're a holy man. Which is it?
It's a bit of both, I think.
But in an ironic twist, the monster hunter is bitten by a werewolf. This of course fuels his insecurity of how society has labeled him as a monster.
Did you tell them what I'm to become? Did I tell them how to kill me? Correct angle of the stake as it enters my heart? No! Exact measure of silver in his bullet! Ha!
No, I lift you out.
His lowest point is when he tragically ends up killing the woman that he was trying to protect and had fallen in love with. Rightfully, Van Helsing is sad, but this final scene is so beautiful when Anna's spirit is reunited in heaven with her family. When she smiles at him, this basically tells Van Helsing he is not a monster, thus vindicating him.
A most amazing idea with some of the world's most amazing monsters has turned into a most amazing snorefest.
You take all of my favorite Universal monsters, you take
Yeah.
a sexy Kate Beckinsale, you take a sexy Hugh Jackman, you get beautiful sets, and then you throw it in a dumpster fire and you get Van Helsing.
I will let you know that I do think that this is bad.
Get out of here.
Regardless of what many people like them have to say, my love for this movie has only increased throughout the years, and others have also opened up to this movie. As much as I like some of the Universal monster movies since then, I haven't loved them nearly as much as Van Helsing. I would much rather see someone like Steven Sommers back in the director's chair making movies, as opposed to these overrated hacks. So that is why I unapologetically love Van Helsing, and will continue to do so. But would I put Van Helsing in my top 10 favorite movies? Not quite, but stay tuned because next month I'll be telling you my top 10 favorite movies of all time.